This
And
conference will now be recorded.
all right. So this is Abhishek, and I overall have an experience of 8+ years in the IT industry, and I've made my journey through different roles in the career. Like I was an administrator, and then I was a tester, and then basically I became a DevOps engineer. And within the role of, let's say, DevOps or particularly Azure DevOps, I hold an experience of overall 5+ years. And most importantly, who am I really to teach this subject? Is because I am a Microsoft certified trainer, and I have done a lot of Microsoft certifications like AZ104, which is administrator, AZ400, which is Azure DevOps engineer expert, and as well, I am a solution architect. So I hold all these things. And apart from this, most importantly, I come with a lot of project experience. So I've been working with a lot of real-time projects, and even now I'm working with one of the projects where for a prestigious client out there in the United States. And I feel I have a very good exposure to Azure, and that's the reason I'm here to go ahead and teach you all what Azure is and what really DevOps is, and we'll continue our journey that way. So let me share my screen. Let us see what are we actually going to get into today. So allow me a second to share my screen, and please do let me know once you are able to see my screen.
Yes, we're able to see.
Yes, it is visible.
Great.
Yes,
So
yes, we are
just
able to see.
all right. So what really is, let's say, Azure DevOps, or what are we really going to learn about in this particular entire curriculum or in this particular entire journey? Now, firstly, yes, it's Azure DevOps, but even before we get into Azure DevOps, we'll need to see what is really cloud computing, because we're all here for that, right, guys? So we are all here to understand what a cloud computing really offers. And I mean, to begin with, what really is a cloud computing? So does anyone has any idea about what cloud computing is, guys? If yes, you all can please go ahead, unmute yourself, and just give a brief about cloud computing. Anyone? I mean, there's nothing to feel shy about it. Just give
Okay.
your idea. Yeah.
Yeah, Abhishek. Cloud computing, what I have understood, my understanding is,
Hmm.
okay, cloud, but a kind of a remote server where things will be hosted. So you have the services like you have softwares, or you want to have operating system and hardware, or you have cloud as an infrastructure. So basically, cloud is nothing but a remote server or remote space where you guys can access this thing.
Okay. Precisely. Your good name? I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Sorry.
This is Ansari here.
Okay, Ansari. Great, great. That's a good idea. That's a good idea of cloud computing. Does anyone has any other ideas about cloud computing, or does anyone has any other thoughts about cloud computing as such?
Yeah, Abhishek.
Yeah, Kiran, go ahead.
Yeah, that's cloud means like where the servers has been put together. Like if you can start the new company, we don't have effort to get the new servers to set up over there, and we want to monitor in that way. For that one, the cloud computing is like they have the all setup of servers they can maintain. We can buy this like that where the fluctuations comes, like for example, if you can take any site like a Redbus or something like that, if
Okay.
number of users have been going through that website, it's gonna be server gonna be like fall down. So
Hmm.
by without falling down that servers, the cloud computing have, when the peak level is there, the servers work very perfectly, like
Okay.
these monitored by the cloud. Is
I
this?
get the idea. Yes, that's precisely that's a good idea about cloud computing, Kiran. But let's really understand what the definition, or what, let's say, a textbook example of what cloud computing right now is. So it says, what, simply put, and etc. stuff like that. But the main idea is delivery of services or delivery of infrastructure over the internet. What exactly this means, really? I mean, even before we appreciate or understand the concept of cloud computing, let's see what was life before cloud computing. So this is like, my mini drawing board where I kind of, try to explain things out. So just imagine that anyone from this class is, let's say, has an idea to develop an application. Okay, what kind of an application is it? For simplicity, let's take it is a self-booking cab application like Ola. So you have an idea, you have a development team who's ready to develop the application for you, and you basically have hired the development team basically. But what is the missing piece of the puzzle out here? Now, what really you need apart from a development team and apart from an idea, you need something called as a server. Now, for ease or for basically for ease of understanding, what exactly is a server? It's nothing but a huge machine like your computer, but magnified into 10,000 times of what your computer size is. Meaning it has some kind of physical infrastructure like a RAM, like a hard drive, like everything that you see on your computer apart from a screen. So you need this particular service so that your application can be hosted over the internet. So server is that particular device or that particular piece of machinery which will help you take your application from a point A, that is, let's say, your server, to, let's say, a point B, which is the internet, where it can be widely accessible. Now, this seems good, right? I mean, this is good. As such, you can buy a server, you can install the server, you can go ahead, host your application out there, and people can come visit your application and you can generate a revenue, which is a good model. But it's not as simple or as easy as this appears out here. Why isn't it easy, if you ask me? First thing, even before your idea takes a shape or even before you hire a development team, the first thing you've got to do is purchase a server. Now, is our servers, uh, I mean, affordable? Not really. You need to basically place an order at least 60 to 90 days in advance, and your order needs to be shipped from a country like United States, because that was the country which was really manufacturing a lot of servers back in the day, and you only had a few manufacturers of these servers. So of course, the time or the wait period is a lot. And where do you need to really store your server? How do you need to really store your server? That is the second question, for which you need something called as a infrastructure or something called as a data center. What am I using? A technical word called data center, meaning it's a place where you store your servers, and these data centers need to be maintained properly. What do I mean by maintenance? Meaning these servers can get really hot. You need maintenance engineers to make sure that the servers are up and running all the time, they're performing all the time, they're available for you all the time. This is one of the complications. Okay, fine. Now you have bought your server, you put it in a maintenance room, you're good, you're rich, you're okay to go ahead and spend money. That is super enough. So fine, you've done that. Second thing, now your team comes in and says, you know what, we see a lot of users actually coming to your application, which is a good reason. Our application initially was designed to, let's say, accommodate 1,000 people. Like 1,000 people can come at one time, visit your application at that particular second, book a cab, book a cab and go into that cab and everything's good. But what if your application now hits 10,000 people instead of 1,000 people? What if that happens? Your application will experience something called as a downtime. Uh, Guys, can all of y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I just got a message telling that someone couldn't hear me. So whoever it is, Venu, can you please go ahead and disconnect your audio and connect back again so that you can hear us? Okay, thank you. So that's where we are. So the development team comes now and tells you that, you know what, hey, they're not 1,000 people, they're like 10,000 people that are visiting our application daily. Now my main concern is, can my infrastructure support so many people? Because the infrastructure that I bought was only to support 1,000 people, not 10,000 users. So what do I need to do now? I need to make sure that my infrastructure is scaled. What I mean by scaled is nothing but adding power, adding more CPU, adding more RAM to my infrastructure, or adding more RAM to my already existing server. Now, what do I need to do again? I need to again basically visit my manufacturer, ask him, you know what, can you please go ahead and give me the server back again, or give me some more space back again, place an order. Again, it would take somewhere around 60 to 90 days for the order to come in, and then install that one and then make your application ready. So I am looking at a wait period of somewhere from 6 to 8 months every time there is a bump in the number of users, or every time there are number of users that are increasing. Now this is the issue. Then is this a profitable business model? Not really. And that's the reason before the inception of cloud, or before the origin of cloud, you did not see a lot of startup culture that was there, which is we are enjoying today. So this guy out here is facing this particular issues. One, he's spending too much of money than he's allocated on maintenance of these servers. Second, his servers are not widely available. What do I mean by wide availability? If let's say this application is designed for a user in India, and I'm placing this server in somewhere in India, I'm okay because the users in India are using this, and so the downtime, or so the load on the server is less. But let's say I want to publish my application globally, meaning I want to take my business to the next level and go to a different country and also start the business there. I need to do the same thing even in that country as well. I need to basically buy servers, put it in there, and etc. Just in case if I have to close my business, what do I need to do with so much amount of capital expenditure? Where do I sell it out? That was the most biggest problem, which is called an exit problem out there. Secondly, scalability. As we spoke, you cannot easily scale these servers, meaning you cannot easily add more RAM, more power to these servers. Finally, time to market. What do I mean by time to market? From the time your application is being developed till the time your application is actually being given to the end user, it is taking about 6 to 8 months. And in that 6 to 8 months, you do not even know whether your application is going to be a hit, or your application is not even going to touch the market. This is one of the biggest things, or this is one of, let's say, the biggest reasons out there that this business model was not doing okay. Then what really happened? Let's say back in the 1994s and etc., companies like Amazon, companies like Microsoft, and companies like Google, they identified that this model is not really working out fine. We need to do something more innovative. I mean, why does a customer who's like just starting, or why does, let's say, a user who's just starting up his business need to invest so many dollars or so many millions on a piece of server? Let's not do that. Let's buy these servers. Meaning, now the companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft would go ahead, buy these servers, put them in a data center, and deliver these servers or rent out these servers over the internet. Then what really happened? My business model kind of changed from this to this. All I needed was just a laptop which had a good connection to the internet. And this basically that you're seeing on my right hand side is the cloud. It's nothing but a data center that is like, you know, arranged out there. And these services are just delivered to me over the cloud. And all I can do right now is just buy the server, or just rent the server, use the service, and just pay for that particular service. And believe me, guys, there were businesses whom I know started with like about 1,000 rupees of capital expenditure, and they kicked off at a very high level. And that's the reason today we are seeing a lot of startup cultures, because you do not have to do a lot of investment into a business today in buying a physical infrastructure. So this was, or rather this is what the power of cloud, what you are enjoying today. So guys, any questions, anything until this point that I can take?
No, we are good.
No, Abhishek, it's fine. Yeah,
Okay,
we are good.
great, great. So let's understand this further. Then we talked about the advantages. So these are all the advantages that basically what the cloud gives you. Cost saving, yes. Flexibility, yes. You can easily start a business, close a business, yes. 24/7 available. Who's responsible for that? The cloud provider. In my case, it's Azure would be your provider, and Azure's responsibility or Microsoft responsibility is to make sure that your cloud or basically your environment is available, readily available 24/7. There is nothing that's really stopping you. Second, reliability, yes. And how is reliability really ensured? By using something called as SLA, service level agreement. As in when you basically register with a cloud provider, the first thing that you sign is something called as a service level agreement. The cloud provider telling you that, hey, you know what? Just in case if my services are down, I am responsible and not you. And I am responsible to get it back up again. So you do not have to take the worry about going ahead and doing all that maintenance. I'll take care of it. Secondly, automatic updates, cost savings, and all these things. So these are the number of advantages what really cloud kind of delivers to you. So again, if I'm talking about a cloud, then what are really the number of clouds that are available out there, or what really are the options that are available out there? Three main things, guys: public, private, and hybrid. Just to make sure I give a very high level overview, public cloud are like Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud Platform, where the services are just delivered to you over the internet. So you have a cloud provider, they have an infrastructure, and the service is just delivered to you over the internet. You do not have to buy any infrastructure. Whereas private cloud, you'll have to go ahead, buy some kind of an infrastructure, because of course you are concerned about your security. So you buy some kind of an infrastructure, put something into maintenance and etc. So public cloud and the private cloud are two ends of the spectrum. Public cloud is setting on the advantages, and private cloud today is not that advantageous because a lot of companies are moving to the public cloud. Then what is a hybrid cloud? It's a mixture of both. It's the best of the both. I mean, I take a few in my data centers. I have a few physical servers in my data center, and I also have a few in the public cloud. I'm also using something like Amazon and etc. So a lot of companies today, for security purposes and etc., are using a model of hybrid. I mean, are using a model of both public and private, which essentially becomes an hybrid cloud model. Then why is it that we are learning Azure? Like one popular question is, why not AWS? Why not Google Cloud Platform? Because there are so many offerings that are available out there. And this is a very popular question that I hear from a lot of people. To answer this in a very simple way, I know I've been using a product called Microsoft Word since the time that I was in my schooling, and a lot of you might have. And the computer what I'm using right now is running on a Windows operating system that was actually designed by a company called Microsoft. So one thing we have to know, or one thing which is already established, is that Microsoft products are indispensable. There is no greater alternative for it. Then how come Azure kind of fits into all these things? Now, Azure as a cloud provider has grown leaps and bounds, and Azure has a great integration with different platforms or different Microsoft products like Office 365, which is one of the Microsoft flagship product, Windows operating systems, Windows licensing, Windows servers. All these things fit very good into Azure. Whereas in the other cloud platforms, they'll have to basically do a service level agreement with Microsoft and then go ahead and license the product to themselves. Whereas with Azure, you do not find that kind of an issue. And believe me or not, Azure is comparatively easier to learn than the other cloud platforms, because I myself know other cloud platforms also. So I know how or what is the terminology, what is the technology that goes into it. So yes, it's a Microsoft product firstly. So the ease of use is great. Secondly, or most importantly, you'll have to think about the job market that you're actually getting into. When I mean by job market, over 80% of, let's say, the Fortune 500 companies today are using Azure as their cloud. Meaning, imagine the amount of job market that you're actually getting into by learning one technology. And most importantly, it's easy to learn. It's not at all difficult. You do not need any prior experience to learn what Azure is. You can just start off with the basic knowledge that you have from a cloud, and you can go from a novice to an expert within months. That is what Azure is given. And lastly, it is widely available. What do I mean by widely available? Azure as such has 54 data centers across the world as of the count which is today. These data centers are spread across the globe. Initially, they were only concentrated in the United States, in the greater part of the North America. But right now, they have spread all their data centers, and these are called as Azure regions. And these are the data centers that Azure has established over the years. So why is this important? Because any business, before it even starts, it understands that, okay, fine, this is the business that I'm actually getting into, and I'll have to see what the cloud provider is really offering me out there. And Azure today has most of the data centers across the world when compared to AWS or Google Cloud Platform or any other cloud platform that you know. So this is one of the most viable opportunity for a business to actually go in and invest it. And if businesses are investing, that means they generate a lot of revenue, and especially they generate a lot of jobs, which we are actually basically going into that. And this is how Azure has kind of grown, let's say from 2015, and this is where we are. This is how much the revenue what it's kind of generated. And one of the most important reasons for this kind of a revenue generation is because Azure has a very good backbone, and Azure kind of integrates with a lot of Microsoft products, and it integrates really very well, and business speaks for it. And this is one of the primary, or this is one of the biggest reasons that one can invest himself in Azure. Then we were talking about Azure till now, right? I mean, this course is about Azure and DevOps as well, right? Then what really I'm sorry, before I get into it, does anyone have any questions that I can take at this point? Any thoughts or anything that needs to be clarified?
Yeah, Abhishek. Abhishek, I have a question here. So
Mhm.
basically, we are going to learn about the Azure, right?
Correct.
Okay. So will it be easy to migrate to other this thing like first of all, I mean, just give me an example. I've done with this Azure. Okay,
Mhm.
can I migrate to Google Cloud or AWS? I mean, how
Great.
difficult it will be for migration?
It's a great question. That's a great question. So the thing is that it is not difficult to migrate to any other cloud platform when you learn Azure. The reason why I'm saying this is that if you take any service provider, any cloud provider, they use the same technology. The backbone gets the same way. The only thing that changes is the terminology. So in Azure, I call something as Apple, and in AWS, call the same thing as Orange. That's it.
Exactly.
That's
Got
the
it.
only terminology that is like really different from one cloud provider to the other. And if you know the basic of one cloud, if you know the in and out understanding of one cloud, it would be very easier for you to learn or you to basically adapt to any other cloud technology. Does
Got
that
it.
answer your question?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. And one more question. You have multiple data centers throughout the world, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have an option to get registered in any data center, or when I register, it will be randomly picked, or will it be only to that confined area? Like for India, it will be only for the Indian data centers.
Not really. So when you register yourself and when you basically start creating something in Azure, like for each and every service, they're going to ask you which region that you want to pick up.
I
And
got it. I
let's
got
say,
it. Okay.
yeah, in India, then they will have more options in India as well.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions that I can take at this point, guys? Or are we good to move ahead? Okay, silence is golden. Let's move ahead. So what really is DevOps practice? Like, what is DevOps? I mean, there is a popular term telling that, you know what, it's a combination of developments plus operations, but what does it really mean? So what does it really mean to me? Let's start with a very basic example. Now, any coding or anyone who's into coding would start with the idea of development of a code. Now, when I talk about development, then you have like different languages like Java, you have like C Sharp, PHP, HTML, Python today. So you need someone like a developer to begin your entire journey with. So a developer begins by developing his code on his laptop. So I'm a developer who's like beginning my journey. I'm like developing my code and I am basically going ahead writing my entire code from A to Z. And right now I know that, or I feel that my code is ready for testing, or my code is ready to be given to the end user. So what I do is like I say, okay, fine. Now it's the time to take my code to the next level. I will go ahead and give my code to someone called as a tester. Now, what is the work of a tester? It's to identify what are the issues with the code, or in popular terminology, it is called bugs in the code. So I am a tester right now. I have got the developer's work. The developer has spent like about 6 to 8 months in just developing the code, because they have been testing from their end. They have been looking at the code and they feel that, you know what, it's working absolutely fine, and they give it to the tester. Now tester is taking the code and tester is saying, okay, fine, let me test this out. And tester is like kind of testing it, and it's taken a month for him to test. And he's identified, let's say, a few issues within the code, a few basically issues that are in the code. And he says, you know what, hey developer, your application is giving some kind of an issues, because I see there are so many bugs here. Can you resolve it and again give it back to me? Meaning, now the tester is again giving the code to the developer. But at an organization level, I have promised my client to give the entire code within a year. So the developer has taken like 6 months, tester has taken like 1 month, totally 7 months is done. I just have 5 months left to complete my entire code. Now the tester is pushing back on the developer and saying, okay, fine, your code has few issues. Can you please go ahead, fix it out? The developer takes it. He now starts building his code again. He starts testing his code again. He says, okay, fine, this is fixed. Pushes it back to the developer. Pushes it back to the tester. Now tester takes, let's say, another 15 months. And in this tug of war, we have like again, spent about 2 months. So 9 months is gone. I have just 3 months now to deliver, or I have a deadline basically that is sitting on top of me. Now, can I give my code directly to the end user, or can I directly give my code to the client? Not really. I need someone, or I basically need someone to check my code in a real-time environment. Now, who's that? It's called a business team, or very popularly, an operations team. Now, I have an operations team who's taking my code, who's going by my word, who's going by the word of my developer, and saying, okay, fine, this code is good. Let's test it out. Now, the operations guys, they are not technically very strong. They are not developers. So they just know how to test the code, or they just know how to run the code. So they are running the code and they're finding a few issues with the code right now. What is the operations team doing? Is operations team is coming back again to the developer and saying, you know what, the code what you have given me is not working in my laptop, or not working in my computer. Can you identify why this is? Now the developer says, you know what, the version which I developed, the version in which I developed my code, you probably have not installed that version in your laptop. Can you please install it? Meaning, what am I seeing out here is a lot of blockages. I, as a developer, know how to develop my code. I as a developer know how to basically write my code end to end, and I've like spent like about very good amount of time in giving a very good quality of code. I as a tester, I have like tested this code. I know that there are no bugs, and I've like given to the operations, but the operations is coming back. Now we are again losing time, guys. We are losing a lot of time to deliver the software. But what is the irony of the situation, or what is the problem in the situation, is that we are trying to deliver the entire code in one bulk, aren't we? Because the developer is spending like about 6 to 8 months and he's developing the entire code, and the tester is doing it again. Then it's coming to the operations guy. It's taking like about 9 months to identify whether my code is good or not. This entire model is called waterfall model of development, meaning I am developing it, taking it to the next level, testing it, taking it to the next level. I have a operations guy who's like again testing it, again coming back. So there's a lot of tug of war here. So they said, okay, fine. It's not going to work out like this in a waterfall model, because here what's popularly happening is that we are losing a lot of time in each and every phase of the life cycle. And this entire thing that you see on my screen, which is development, testing, and the release of the code, all these three together are called SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle. This is the life cycle of any software that you take in the world. It begins with development, which is the primary thing, goes into a testing phase, and then goes into a code release phase. But I am losing a lot of time out here, which is why industry adopted to something called as an agile practice. Now, what happened in an agile practice is that they said, okay, fine, let's not deliver the entire code in one chunk. Let's not do that. Rather, let's break our code into small pieces, into small operationable pieces which can actually work, and then deliver those pieces to the customer or to the client, whoever I promised. Let's deliver it in bits and pieces. Let's have an agreement that in the first 3 months I deliver something small, the next 3 months I deliver something more, in the next 3 months I'll deliver more, and in, let's say, a cycle of 1 year, I give the client a full operational code. It's just like this. You have an application called Ola, and the first time what Ola got released, I know that it only had cabs. Within, let's say, 6 months, it also came with hotels. Within the next, it also came with, let's say, food ordering. So this is called feature oriented development. I am not delivering my application at a go. I am cutting my application, or I'm breaking my application down into something called as features, and then delivering these features to the end user one at a time. Then is this okay? Like, this model is okay? Yes, this model is okay. It's working out very fine, but there is something that is still missing on to the entire, entire fabric. What is it? Again, even in this model, my developer is developing, let's say, in 1 month. He's giving it to tester. Tester is taking like 10 days, again going into the release, or again going to the business or the operations. They are again pushing back. There is this tug of war that is still there, even in a feature oriented development. And that's why they said, you know what, we need a team which accounts this, which can look like a developer and also help like an operations guy, and also test the code while the code is happening, or while the code is getting developed. And that is where DevOps as a profession actually came into the picture. They said, okay, fine. DevOps now is an amalgamation of, or it's a combination of developers and operations guys who are coming together and forming one team. And that is where DevOps actually began. And this is what is a very popular diagram of what DevOps really looks like. Meaning, here the first phase is the build. Meaning, what build means is simply testing your code, or rather, if you start it even further, it is planning your code. It's like going to the customer, understanding what his requirement is, then getting your team, then understanding which language in which the code is being developed, then developing your code, and as and when your code is developed, even if it's a very small chunk of the code, test it out, go ahead, give it to the client, monitor it continuously, and according to what the monitoring says, again plan your code. So your software development lifecycle, which was a linear way or which had a linear texture, kind of right now has a cyclic texture out here. What do I mean by cyclic texture? Is that it is continuously evolving. You are planning based on what you have like monitored. So you're monitoring your software based on the client's feedback. You're again developing it. You're again building it. You're again testing it. You're again releasing it, deploying it, again monitoring it. And that monitoring is again coming back to, let's say, the operations team. The operations team is able to, let's say, pass on the feedback very well to the development team. And this is the exact reason, or basically what has this done to begin with, is that it has improved the quality of the software development lifecycle. Improved in a way that you have a better quality of software today, and the delivery mechanism or the time to deliver the software has improved a lot. You are delivering the software in less than the promised time. This is because you have something called as a DevOps practice in place. And most importantly, why are companies adapting to it? Firstly, because it is agile. Secondly, it's automated. The entire process doesn't need a human intervention or doesn't need a lot of human intervention. So I am cutting down on a lot of cost. At the same time, I am improving the efficiency of my software development lifecycle. So that is the reason why you see a lot of companies today adapting to the DevOps practices. And when I talk really about DevOps practices, then I also spoke about companies that are adapting to it, right? And this is the average, or this is, let's say, the sum of all the averages of the companies that are hiring the DevOps engineers, and this is the average salaries that what the DevOps engineers are actually getting in. So you see all the top companies, like most of the top companies or most of the Fortune 500 companies, they need a DevOps engineer on their team. They need someone with a good amount of DevOps practice in their team. They need someone who knows what DevOps is and can implement it. Then when I say implement it, then what do you use to implement it? Or what is like used to really implement your DevOps practice? So out there in the market, when you type in DevOps, right, you will have a lot of tools, a lot of things that actually are available to you, and you can use a lot of them. You can choose and pick a lot of them and then implement things out. But why are we really looking at Azure DevOps as that? Or why are we looking at Azure DevOps as such? Is because we are learning a cloud called Azure, and Azure DevOps is the native version of DevOps for Microsoft. So Azure DevOps is a tool, a technology that you can use to implement DevOps practices. Is Azure DevOps the only thing that is available out there in the market? Of course not. But why should you go for Azure DevOps? Because it integrates very well with Azure. It has the same SLA what Azure has, and you kind of get a better support to the other products on the market. Like if you were to go with a cloud like AWS, which does not have, let's say, its own DevOps practice, then you'll have to basically rely upon other open source tools. Like there are a lot of open source tools available in the market today, which do not promise a great SLA. So if you're a company who is like really looking into, or who is like really, who really needs, a good amount of time to deliver the software and good amount of time, good amount of SLA basically being promised, then they rely on such a product like Azure DevOps. And the journey of Azure DevOps is something like this. Started off in 2011 as something called VSO. It's called Visual Studio Online. And then basically went into something called VSTS, Visual Studio Team Server. And now finally, it is taking a shape called Azure DevOps. So you hear people using all the terminologies. Like some people, they call it as VSTS. Some people call it as ADO. A very less amount of people call it VSO, and popularly called as Azure DevOps as such. And what makes it standalone? Like there are a lot of products, right? So what makes this guy standalone? Thing is, you do not have to install anything for Azure DevOps. Let's say for Jenkins, yes, you need to install something. For any product out there, you need to install some basic thing out. Azure DevOps as such is a service in itself that can be consumed over the internet. All you need is a laptop and a good connection of the internet, and you can start consuming this particular service. You do not have to go ahead and install something. Same with Azure. If you want to use Azure, all you need to do is like have a laptop, have a connection, you're good to go. You do not have to really go ahead and install something out there. You are all set, and you can just go ahead and work from any corner of the world. You do not really have to basically have any pre-installed softwares on your laptop or on your computer to go ahead and interact with these softwares. So this makes it more user friendly, and it has a very good graphical user interface, so it makes things easy to understand. This is why Azure DevOps is kind of taking a very big share of the market today. So what are we going to really learn in our entire course curriculum? We talked about Azure, we talked about Azure DevOps. Then what are we going to really see? So we are going to start with the very basics of cloud. Like I see that there are a lot of people in the class, and I'm not sure in which background, from which background they're actually belonging to. So there might be people who are experienced already, there might be people who are like really new to the product. So I want to make sure that the classes are delivered in such a way that everyone has a level playing field out here. Everyone can understand each and every concept in a very good conceptual understanding. So we're going to start off with the very basics of cloud, like understand what really a cloud is, understand what Azure is, and then see how you can create something in Azure and see how you can use Azure, and then go into the core concepts of Azure. Like you have a few core concepts of Azure, like networking, like application servers, and we're going to see how you can create them, how you can use them, and how you can troubleshoot them. Main importantly, it's troubleshooting, because that's what is the skill that you need to make sure that you kind of have a habit to inculcate. Thirdly, it's now we are going ahead and creating resources. We are using the Azure portal. Can it be automated? Yes, there are a lot of tools to automation. And what are we going to look at is most importantly PowerShell scripting. And as in when I say scripting, I hear a lot of questions that, do you need a coding experience for it? Not really. This is not a code. This is a script. PowerShell does not really follow the concepts of object-oriented programming language. So it does not follow the concept of OOPS. It's easy to understand, it's easy to learn, and it has a great graphical user interface, which makes it even more better and interesting. Secondly, you need something, or basically we learn something about Azure Resource Manager templates, or ARM templates, a native product to Microsoft again, which is used for your infrastructure creation and automating the infrastructure creation. And we are also going to interact with a third-party tool called Terraforms, which is now basically which is now in a great demand. Like you can have a very good combination of ARM templates, Terraforms, and PowerShell scripting on your resume, which will have a very good added advantage. And our main focus is DevOps using Azure DevOps. We are going to make sure to implement the DevOps practices out there, and we're going to use a product called Azure DevOps along with the Azure cloud and see how the implementation is actually going. And is Azure DevOps sufficient for the entire software development lifecycle? Yes, in reality, it is sufficient, but companies are more and more looking for people who have exposure and experience or a little bit of knowledge on tools like Jenkins Octopus, Dockers, and Kubernetes. These are the third-party tools, third-party DevOps tools that we are also going to go ahead and look at. So these are the entire area, or this would be the entire spectrum of what we cover. And it's going to take somewhere around 55 to 60 classes to complete the entire thing. And the class timings are going to be from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And it's going to be a 1 hour class every day. And recordings would be provided at the end of the day. So this is the entire syllabus, or this is, let's say, the entire area what we're going to cover, guys. And this is the introductory session only, so I did not delve into what really is the cloud or what the terminologies of cloud and etc. I do not want to do that right in the first, and it would sound overwhelming if I do that. So I am done with the session, and I am open to take a lot of questions. I know you people will have a lot of questions, so I am open to take the questions and I'm happy to answer them out.
Abhishek, a quick question. So when are we
Yeah, Rahul.
going to start the training of an actual start would be?
If I'm not wrong, it would be from tomorrow. Kiran, am I right?
Yes.
Correct. So it would be from tomorrow. So today is just an introductory session, and from tomorrow we're going to start the actual classes.
Okay, Abhishek, actually, I have one doubt. You said there is a lot of servers in different places. It is
Mhm.
all are open source or licensed?
No, see, when you're talking about Microsoft Azure, right, they are all licensed. So you need to have something called as an Azure account to use these servers. Does it answer your question, Shiva?
Yeah, okay, done. Actually, what I'm thinking means you said so many people are using Azure, and we can
Mhm.
also use the Azure. Like directly, we can use through link. You were saying, na? So I had you said me we can use entire whole from anywhere from any remote
Correct.
place also we can use. So
Correct.
that's what I got one doubt. It is open
Mhm.
source or it is licensed. If it is licensed, it means it could be on private sector. I think so. So if it is open source or it is that's the doubt.
No, what do I mean by that is that if you have an internet connection and if you have an Azure account, you can go ahead and start using them out. You don't need anything else apart from this.
Okay, okay, done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, Abhishek, this is Ranjan.
Yeah, hi Ranjan.
So we can learn briefly about the Terraform and PowerShell scripting ARM template because we cannot
Yes.
use in a
Mhm.
company in portal except monitoring only those things because
Correct,
portal
that's true.
access because everything we will do in these three only.
Absolutely. So we understand the importance of all these automation tools, and there is a great emphasis in our syllabus to make sure we inculcate to the practice of PowerShell, inculcate to the practice of ARM and Terraform. So yes, it's going to start from a very basic level, and it's going to take, it's going to take a good amount of time to get into, let's say, an advanced level of it. And we will be able to cover from a very basic to an advanced level in our classes. Because
Okay, and
as
in
you,
Terraform we will use Git, na?
sorry,
In Terraform we will use only Git application.
not really. You use something called Azure CLI in Terraform. It's called command line interface. You don't need to have a Git for a Terraform.
Yeah, actually we are using Git. That's
See, again, this is one technology that has a lot of universal uses. Terraform again can be implemented not only on Azure but on AWS and GCP as well. So you can use Git, you can use CMD, you can use command line interface, you can use PowerShell to invoke basically a Terraform. So you can do a lot of things out there.
okay. Okay, thanks.
Abhishek, this is Sridhar. Can we get any brief explanation of configuration management tools like Chef, Puppet, or Ansible?
So, Sridhar, Chef, Puppet, Ansible, they are more on the open source of things. You really wouldn't require them when you're using Azure DevOps as such, because Let's say Chef is actually being replaced by ARM templates in our place because that's a configuration management tool that we're using. And Puppet and etc. You really wouldn't need that as such. You would
So
just need, yeah.
we want to use these tools anytime in real time while when we are working on Azure.
Yes, while you're working on Azure and while you're working on Azure DevOps, all you need is just Azure DevOps and understanding of automation. You wouldn't need something like a Salt Stack or Puppet, or you have a lot of tools out there, a lot of open source tools out there.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you are working on a cloud like AWS or GCP, then that's when you'll have to actually go ahead and learn these, and they have their intrinsic complexities along with them. So that's the reason I started off by telling that it's easy to learn Azure when compared to other clouds like AWS and GCP.
Okay, Abhishek.
Hello, Abhishek. This is Ranjan here. So
Yeah,
we will cover the cluster as well. Na?
Kubernetes cluster, you mean?
I don't know cluster,
Hmm.
but like VM build after VM build, we are doing cluster things. Na?
So you might be talking about Kubernetes cluster. If that is, then yes, we would be covering Kubernetes cluster as well.
Okay.
Abhishek, you are saying this is all server based and it is coming through the cloud to server like that. If it is
Yeah.
is there any Linux environment or not? Like totally Windows we will use.
It's a combination of both. Like you have Windows, you can also implement Linux on Azure as well. But in most of my career, what I've been doing is on Windows because Microsoft as such integrates very well with Windows. So 90% of the times you'll be doing Windows administration as such, or you'll be working with Windows.
Abhishek, my name is Rahul. I have a quick question.
Yeah, Rahul.
So
So, I
when we
mean,
are Linux,
I'm sorry, yeah, in using the PowerShell, do we need to automate any kind of a script?
Yes, you would need to basically write end-to-end scriptings, and PowerShell is, let's say, a language that is used to automate, but
Mhm.
it is not really a programming language, I would say. As I said earlier, it is something that is not really to be frightened about. It doesn't really follow the basics of object-oriented programming language, so it's kind of easy to adapt. And as in when you start interacting with PowerShell, and it takes, let's say, like about 15 to 20 days in order to get a knack of it. But once you get a hold of it, you'll be able to pretty much automate your infrastructure using PowerShell scripting.
Okay. Do we use any kind of a third-party softwares when cron tab in terms of Linux or Unix
Mhm,
scripting?
mhm.
Do we use any
So
kind of a third-party automated scripts? I mean, doing things for PowerShell, I guess.
you can also use PowerShell scripting to deploy your infrastructure in Linux. It is not
Mm-hmm.
mandatory that you do a shell scripting. Although shell scripting is one of the favorite languages for Linux automation, but shell scripting is something that we wouldn't cover in this class. It's going to be purely PowerShell, and third party, you have Terraform to automate your infrastructure.
Oh, okay, got it. Terraform is
Yeah.
used to automate these scripts. Yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
yeah,
Correct.
got it.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. If no one has any questions, thank you, Abhishek, for taking today demo. And it was very good. Everyone joined, and I hope it is an attractive session demo today. So basically, guys, we will be covering this course for 2 months, and the classes would be weekdays, Monday through Friday. And so we will be assisting you with Azure DevOps and certifications, daily recordings, and if someone required job assistance, job placement, they can certainly contact us. And it is good for freshers. It is good for experienced people who wanted to, cope up your uh, engagement of your employment to higher level, higher packages. So request everyone to participate this session and learn good things. So you can, from the pay scale and everywhere, it is very good.
Yeah, Ricky, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have this course or like this, or you have something some kind of a crash course on the week, something like that, or you guys
No,
will have one?
we have only 5 days program per weekly basis only.
Okay, weekly basis, you have only 5 days. Huh? I mean,
Yes.
you guys don't have any plans for the weekends or something like that?
No.
Okay, Abhishek, this
You
Microsoft
provide
account, you
any
have to pay for
PPT
that
or
account.
something
How
like
is it?
that?
Or is it a free account? Oh, you have a
Uh,
student account.
so actually, so we'll discuss everything from tomorrow onwards. So how to create a free account and how many hours will be there. So I'm just letting you know. So from tomorrow onwards, we'll be starting the class, and from scratch, we are going to teach you.
So do you
Yeah, yeah.
provide any material or
Thank you,
something
So
Ricky.
like
Thank
any
that?
you.
other non-technical questions here?
So do you provide any like PPT or something like that for the reference after the class or
To
something?
be frank, guys, PPT and study material we are not providing. The reason behind Microsoft is keep on changing, aligning new things, and developing the futures day by day. You see today one future, and tomorrow morning that future will be much more enhanced. So let's say I given a material and you're studying that for the interview, right? And you are going to penalize because that future won't be available, and another enhanced future will be available tomorrow. So
Yeah,
that's a
Ricky.
reason that's a
Yeah,
reason we are not providing any course. We request everyone to go for docs.microsoft.com for any topic.
at least for the reference, can you share that this PPTs?
Yeah, that we will discuss that up to the trainer,
Okay, yeah, at least for the references,
because
because
this isn't just a basic PPT. Okay, this doesn't have
yeah,
any
yeah, yeah. Just a
fashion
basic
of
PPT,
matter.
Today for the
yeah,
future, like
that should be enough.
what the class taught for every day for the reference,
Yeah,
if you have PPT, so you can just cross check one more time.
there won't be any PPT, guys. From tomorrow onwards, it will be a black screen, and you will be having Azure portal in front of you, and we'll show all the options. Only
Okay,
for
okay.
today, it is
Because
in
what
PPT.
happens is, just for afterwards, after we finish the class, we want to have some references. So that's the
Of
reason I
course.
was asking.
So not to worry about that. So what I'll be doing is send across links to you all from where to study and what to study or what to
Mhm.
read as such. And these are going to be authentic Microsoft documentations. And the reason, as Kiran explained, the reason not behind creating a PPT is because they'll become obsolete at a certain point in time. And it's the documentation of Microsoft Azure as such is so crisp that even a layman can actually go ahead and read it and understand things out. So we will be referring to you all, or we will be guiding you all how to read this out.
Yeah, yeah, Abhishek, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
problem.
Well, thank you everyone, guys, for participating today's session, and we'll meet you sharp 8 a.m. and you have a wonderful day ahead.
Yeah, guys, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
Thanks,
so much,
guys.
Abhishek. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.